Welcome in, everybody, to the pack. Once again, myself, Eli Berkovitz, here with Zach Jacobson. Very exciting day in Packers Nation. Real excited to be here to talk to all of you. Before we dive into it, though, Zach, how you feeling? How was your week? Probably very busy with everything going on.
It was very busy, but being busy is never a bad thing.
That is true.
Yeah, I got no complaints.
All right. Well, that is good to hear. I always like to be busier than not, because then it just gets sad. But it is a fun time, just in general with football right now. We are 6 days away? No, sorry, 8 days away from the kickoff of the season, and then for the Packers season, I guess 11 days away. But yeah, we are right there. It is happening. It is all very good and very exciting. And today, for obvious reasons, but the roster cut down was pretty wild. But then we had some really interesting, kind of surprising news that I think we should kick it off with. And that's Jonathan Taylor supposedly being a serious interest for the Packers. Brian Gutekunst making calls to the Colts to trade for the star running back. Zach, were you as surprised as I was? And what's your general feeling about the Packers being reportedly in on Jonathan Taylor?
Well, before we talk about actual important things, can you show everyone your onesie?
Oh yeah, everyone.
I feel like you have to. If you're gonna hop on the show wearing a fucking Packers onesie, I feel like you need to show everybody.
Head to the Packer Pro Shop, everyone. This thing lined with fur, very comfortable, very soft, and very stylish, I must say. Very stylish stuff coming out of the Packer Pro Shop. So, and as you see, once again, I think I'm just going to adopt the Pat McAfee style, do some standing work, get me free on my feet, feeling good. See, even while Zach is sitting, he's knocking things over. The guy,
that was my goddamn demon of a cat. Hey, asshole.
Yeah,
I like the onesie is. I mean, that's your style with the popped collar and everything. So it makes sense why you were kind of drawn to that.
Yeah, it was. I saw it on a mannequin, and I was like, I have to have it, and that was it. That was the whole.
Now
story.
It's on another mannequin.
Looked like an action figure. Am I right? Got him.
No, you're not a real person. You're not a real person. So
that's true. I am far from real.
But the Jonathan Taylor thing, yeah, that was really surprising to say the least. I feel like it's one of those things where it's so out of the realm of comprehension that you would never expect the Packers to be in on something like that. Just because they have a great backfield. Aaron Jones is great. AJ Dillon, when he's running the way he did in 2021, he's great. And Emmanuel Wilson is promising. He made the 53-man roster. He can't play, or not saying he can't play, but he hasn't gotten the opportunity really to play extensively on special teams, but he made the roster. So they have a nice backfield. They have a decent stable, and they're calling about Jonathan Taylor. There were reports about it never got beyond a scout level. Brian Gutekunst never actually, tried to kind of, reinforce their interest.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, as he always says, they're going to call around. They're going to ask. It doesn't make much sense to me. There were a couple of people who kind of floated the idea of okay, AJ Dillon is probably going to the last year of his deal unless they re-sign him, which would be I feel like that'd be a little unforeseen at this point, given the rate of the running back market. But maybe their plan was to send over AJ Dillon and a pick for Jonathan Taylor. Maybe that would have gotten it done. Who knows? But it's definitely interesting to say the least. Bringing him back to Wisconsin, someone of that caliber. He's not healthy right now. That's the thing. Apparently, there was a back issue that caused him to open up camp on the non-football injury list. There's the ankle injury from last year, the complications from surgery that he had. So he's on the PUP list for the first 4 weeks of the season at minimum. So you don't know what you're going to get for him or from him if you do end up trading for him. And then you got to sign him to a new deal. So it gets really hairy. And the Packers are already kind of strapped for cash. So I can't imagine them just doing something like that. I feel like this was just a big thing that was blown out of proportion. The Packers called, they asked, they inquired about him. It didn't really go beyond that.
Yeah, obviously on paper, right, Jones, Dillon, clearly, on paper, this wouldn't seem to make a lot of sense. And then fine, if you want to say Dillon's traded, and then you think, all right, then Taylor's your guy for the future. But you mentioned the contract. no matter where he goes, he's going to get a big deal. The Packers, I mean, I don't know if they want to do it, but I don't want them to do it. I don't think it's worth it. He's already had injuries, and I don't think he's out of his prime, but he's had a couple huge seasons. He's had some injuries. We've seen running backs, you have 2 great years, and then you could be serviceable, you could be good, but I don't know if we're ever going to see 2021 Jonathan Taylor again. Who knows? So I would not love the idea. I guess, in my head, it was, okay, you trade Dillon. Jones is going to be 29 next year, potentially not on the team. So it's this great running back room today won't exist next year, and then you won't have to worry about it because you'll have Taylor. But it's not enough. And also, if the team was maybe closer to competing for like a Super Bowl, then you can make the argument as a 1-year investment, he could be, bring you to the next level. We're not there yet, so it just doesn't make sense for me.
But then, and then you look at this coming season, it's been pretty well documented that the Packers are kind of in the middle of a youth movement, and they're trying to evaluate the bottom of their roster, the youth on their roster, the young talent that they have. So, I know Jonathan Taylor is still young, but at the same time, that move kind of like conflicts with everything we've been told and everything we've been seeing. It's like that you make a move like that, that's not only looking towards the future, that's like saying like, hey, we want him to be a part of our backfield with Aaron Jones this year. We want to compete this year. And we know the Packers are going to compete this year. They're not just going to roll over and be like, oh, we moved on from Aaron Rodgers. We have a lot of young talent. We're going to kind of just flop on our back and let everyone just kind of have their way with us and, be content with 3 wins.
Yeah,
they're going to compete. They're going to try and win every single game. They're going to try and compete for, the top spot in the NFC North. It's just, we know how disposable of a position it is to play running back right now. It is like, it's a bad time to be a running back in the NFL. And having someone like Jonathan Taylor and knowing you have to pay him, probably what would be a market setting deal, it just makes 0 sense to me. I can't imagine them doing that. That's just me. I think it would be fun. It would be awesome. It would be so fucking cool having Jonathan Taylor in that backfield. But realistically, no.
Yeah, it just, I guess, because we always hear Goody's in on every conversation, and I guess that is good, better than someone not making any calls. But this was something that I think no one in the NFL world thought the Packers for 1 second would even look into Jonathan Taylor, let alone have any kind of real interest. So that was obviously a pretty interesting thing to see. But other news in Packers world today, which there's plenty of, but let's start with the way they started the day, releasing some players so they could claim some players, and then we'll get to the practice squad. So right off the bat, Tariq Carpenter and Jonathan Ford, who just so happened to be the last 2 guys I took off my original 53-man roster. So now they make it. It would have looked a lot better for me if that happened yesterday. But what do you think about that? I mean, Carpenter, I think I saw a tweet of yours and I agreed. For him to get into that inside linebacker room was really surprising to me because they already have 4 guys there. And then you have Jonathan Ford, who was in another stacked room, but had a really good camp in preseason by all reports I've seen. So what were your kind of like, were you surprised that they were the 2 that got released? How do you feel about that?
I feel like when I left Tariq Carpenter off my 53 just because he hadn't become much of a factor on special teams. He had kind of fallen out of favor in that middle linebacker room. And I feel like when they transitioned him from safety to middle linebacker, I feel like that was like a kiss of death. That was like, this is like kind of like a last attempt at trying to get something out of you, and he's obviously at that stature where he could play safety, where he could play, inside linebacker. He's physical enough and he's fast enough to be able to play both spots, that hybrid type of player. And when they drafted him, I was super, super excited. I thought they could possibly have a gem there, but he just hasn't translated to the next level. Now, he was behind, I think he was like the 5th or 6th guy in that room. I mean, there was Devondre Campbell, Quay Walker, Isaiah McDuffie, Eric Wilson, Jimmy Phillips, and he was like the 6th guy. He was running with like, the 3rd team middle linebacker. So he fell out of favor. I left him off. So I'm not necessarily surprised. I mean, they've drafted 8 7th-round picks in the last 2 years, dating back to last spring. So it's like, they've invested pretty heavily there. They can afford to kind of let one guy go. And one of them obviously is Jonathan Ford. I had him on my 53. I thought you can't have enough depth on the defensive line. Those talk about it all the time, mention this every single time we talk about the defensive front. You can't have enough depth. You can't have too deep of a rotation. Those teams usually end up being the best. Guys who can continue to cycle out, stay fresh. And I thought he had pretty rare size, pretty rare movement ability for someone that big. So I figured they would hang on to him, and they did for a day, but good chance they get him back on the practice squad. The only guy that I can recall being claimed from their cuts was Shamar Jean-Charles.
Yeah.
He signed with the 49ers. It's the only one I can recall right now. Might be the only one.
No,
but yeah, it was. What was that?
No, that was the only. The only guy that gets claimed on another roster. But by the way, of course, at San Francisco, Shamar Jean-Charles will probably turn out to be a Pro Bowl player in the next 2 years, and that'll be fun to watch.
They grabbed Oren Burks.
Yeah, Oren Burks. Jeez. Good thing they traded up for him in the third round. Yeah, so that is who the Packers released. They released those two players, Tariq Carpenter and Jonathan Ford, to pick up tight end Ben Sims and defensive back Zane Anderson. I won't pretend to have huge amounts of knowledge about either of these players. I kind of have seen what everyone else has seen on Twitter. But Zach, do you maybe have any kind of gem about either of these guys that could help us?
Absolutely not.
Nice.
I have had no time today to do any research on these guys. If I covered the Packers full time, which I technically do if you look at my Twitter account, but if I was able to stay home all day and write and cover the Packers, then I definitely would have, been able to give you more of a background on these guys. But I'll dive into them tomorrow.
Yeah, well, real quick, just on paper kind of stuff. Ben Sims, coming out of Baylor, had 785 career yards in college to go along with 12 touchdowns. He had, the last 3 years, 3, 6, and 3 touchdowns. So that's, at least is, getting in the end zone a bit. And Zane Anderson is simply not coming up in their database. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, the Packers claim again tight end Ben Sims and defensive back Zane Anderson. And now for the practice squad, I'm just going to run through it real quick for anyone who has not yet seen who the Packers brought back. Austin Allen, Corey Ballantyne, Keyshawn Banks, Grant Dubose, 7th round pick. Happy he's back. James MP, Innis Gaines, Alex Magoo. By the way, we need Mr. Magoo shirts. I don't know how that hasn't happened yet, but that's what I want. Bo Melton, Aaron Mosby, Kenneth Odumegwu, Henry Pearson, Benny Sapp, Chris Slayton, Patrick Taylor, Kadeem Telfort, and Keandre Thomas. So all those guys were on the team during training camp, so you should be familiar with their names. But looking at the overall roster cut down, we didn't have a show yesterday, of course. So Zach, how did you feel? I think your roster was pretty close to what it came out to, your roster predictions. So I guess you should be pretty much okay with all the decisions they make. Anything that really surprised you?
I forgot what Matt said. I think Matt said I got like 49 guys. Wendell got 50. He was like the only one to get 50. I got 49. So yeah, there was no major surprise to me. I thought it was a little surprising that they kept a third running back. That's not to say like Emmanuel Wilson hasn't earned it. And I know we briefly mentioned him earlier in the show, but that's not to say he hasn't earned it, because he led the league in rushing yards in the preseason. He had 111 against Cincinnati in the opener, 14 years to the day his dad passed away. That was, such a special night. And you kind of got the feeling there that he was like, okay, they could have something here. They could have something they could develop in that backfield. Tyler Goodson was my favorite coming into the summer, but they had that shoulder injury. They released him. Very unfortunate. Their family is so cool. But I thought, no matter what we saw from these running backs in the preseason, I always thought they were going to carry 2 like they did last year, just because they have the flexibility of those game day elevations that they can use for the first stretch of the season until they run out. Now, if they were going to carry 3, I always thought they were going to lean in Patrick Taylor's direction. He was like 3rd on the team in special team snaps in the preseason. I know he doesn't offer much as a runner, and I've been very vocal about that, but I always thought Matt LaFleur, he said it all the time. That 3rd string running back job is going to come down to how well you can pass protect and how well you play on special teams, how you contribute in that phase of the game. And they didn't do it. They surprised me. They kept Emmanuel Wilson, the best pure runner they've had in the preseason, and he definitely deserved it. He 100%. That was really the biggest surprise to me. I had a good feeling they would keep 6 edge rushers. You can't cut Brenton Cox at a premium position. He looks too good. He will get snatched off the street. And I predicted 4 cornerbacks. I thought they would hang on to Tarvarius Moore, but obviously the injury kind of complicated things. But really, no major surprises. Like that's the long and short of it. I mean, pretty straightforward. I feel like this year, as opposed to other years, I feel like I say this all the time, but it's like it felt easier to predict than normal.
Yeah, no, I do think with this year, because there were so many draft picks. That right off the bat, you knew we were going to be getting caught. They not just this year, but last year's picks as well. And also with such a young team, it was kind of like they're their guys, and then there were a few, every like a couple fringe guys you weren't sure about. But like the bulk, like the heavy bulk of this roster, I think everyone pretty much knew what was going to happen. But yeah, keeping 3 running backs surprised me because I also had 2 in my prediction. And, if I thought about a third, the reason why I went with 2 is just because, like you said, they want their third guy to be good on special teams and in pass protection. And Emmanuel Wilson hasn't showed that yet. He also hasn't had the chance to, so we'll see. But I knew Patrick Taylor. I just felt like at this point it wasn't enough to bring him back. So Emmanuel Wilson, I think maybe, and this is just my thought, if their thought process was this guy clearly has really real talent running the football. And like we mentioned earlier about Jonathan Taylor, there's at least a pretty solid chance that at least one, if not both, Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are not on this team next year. And as Chris said, you don't want to have to worry going into next year. You literally don't have a running back, and you have to draft one early or you have to sign someone. So Emmanuel Wilson, if he can develop throughout this year and they feel comfortable enough that next year he can either be their guy or at least be part of the backfield, I think that's part of the reason why they kept him, probably, at least for me.
I have a feeling no matter what we think about his contract or his age, I feel like they're going to keep Aaron Jones for the foreseeable future. Brian Gutekunst called him the heart and soul of this team. So you don't just say that about a guy and then, cut him. I don't see that. But yeah, we know that the Packers really value draft picks, which was that was another surprise to me. Not them cutting Lou Nichols, because, I know he had the shoulder injury. He wasn't able to play at all in the preseason. They stashed him in the practice squad. But Grant DuBose, I know he was also dealing with the injury, but he was able to play a little bit in the preseason. He made a couple nice acrobatic catches. I thought they would keep him on the active roster. I thought they would carry 7 receivers, and I know Malik Heath kind of emerging really kind of threw a corkscrew into those plans. But draft picks have a special place in this roster. I mean, Brian Gutekunst, if you count this year, there are 6 guys who didn't make the initial 53-man roster as rookies. It was Jake Hansen, Cole Van Lennon, Kendall Donnerson, James Looney, and now Lou Nichols and Grant DuBose. So out of, I believe it was 61 draft picks under Brian Gutekunst, only 6 did not make the initial roster. So you kind of assumed, someone like Grant DuBose would make the roster. Like, these guys are valued, and we know Green Bay, it's a draft and develop organization. They're going to be patient with some of these guys. But now DuBose gets the opportunity to kind of develop on the practice squad. I was kind of surprised, since we're talking about the receivers, they didn't bring back Jadakiss Bonds. After he had that really nice catch in the Seattle game, he's flashed a little bit in training camp from what I've read. That was a little. I mean, maybe he got an offer for somewhere else, but I did not see him get claimed. Maybe I missed it.
No, I didn't see his name at all today on that transaction paper, so I don't think so. But yeah, that was interesting. And another interesting decision, I would say, was their choice to go with the unproven young Daniel Whelan over the veteran Pat O'Donnell. Looking on it now, I feel like I should have probably at least given it some more thought, because it was like Whelan. Every report from camp was Whelan just hitting bombs every day. Like, his leg is huge. So I don't know why in my head I was so locked in on O'Donnell. Some of the holding stuff kind of came to my mind because I know that was an issue and you don't want to have those problems. But I have no issue with them going with Whelan. Young guy, if he can be, your punter going forward for the next, 10 10 years, then that's getting ahead of him. But just saying, if they clearly have confidence to move on from O'Donnell to him, I have no problem with it. You had O'Donnell or you had Whelan on yours?
I had O'Donnell, but you're not going to get me to talk about a punter on this show. I'm sorry.
All right, that's fair. Well, look, Chris brought it up, so I had.
Yeah, well, you know what? Chris is a fucking terrorist. Look, if Daniel Whelan is going to be anything remotely close to like serviceable or even average, he's got to change that number.
Yeah,
I will not allow a punter on this football team to wear 41. No, it's okay. Don't be scared. It's okay. It's okay.
How did that even happen? Like they really couldn't find any number under 20 to give the guy.
I feel like one has to be opened up by now. I mean, give him 6. Jadakiss Bond isn't. He's not wearing it anymore.
Yeah, you got to give him something. 41. No one should wear 41. No one should wear 40s. Maybe like 42 is a number that some guys have worn. Outside of that, can you think of one 40s number that isn't gross to look at?
Well, it depends what position you're playing.
No, but what? Who wears 40s? No one wears 40s.
Well, let's say, for example,
Eric Wilson's what, like 45? I think
he's 45. Yes,
but like
I mean, Vonta Leach wore 48. He was a really good fullback.
Say Morgan Burnett. He rocked 42.
He 42. Yeah. What's his name?
42. But
I don't want to say his name because he's a rapist. But another safety wore 42 in Green Bay.
Yeah.
Fucking James Starks 44. Najee Davenport 44.
Fair. 44. James Starks. By the way, James Starks, what a guy. I feel like he never got appreciated as much as he should have. I liked him.
No, I feel like he did get appreciated because everyone always says, "Oh, nobody appreciated James Starks enough." And everyone starts talking about him, and they start appreciating
I'm
him.
saying it. I'm saying it for sure.
All right, onesie.
Oh, I'm so comfortable. You have no idea. But all right, so this is something that honestly has been on my mind really all of the offseason. I just got into a little argument with my brothers about it, so I need to know your opinion. The Packers, I think we saw, what was it? The average age is 24.6, I believe it is.
Whatever it was that Dara tweeted, I can't remember.
Yeah, something like that. Somewhere in the 24 range. And that is obviously very, very young. And for the most part, I really don't have any issue with it. All I said, and then I got a bunch of heat back. I just said that for people in the media, and again, they always look for drama and all that kind of stuff. But all I'm saying was that if this season does not go as the way we think it's going to go, and it's just like a dumpster fire in any way, I think immediately everyone will say, well, what do you think is going to happen when you have the youngest team like ever? Your 3 oldest receivers are all second-year guys. Just so much youth all over, not enough veteran leadership. So again, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it should happen. But do you think is there any amount of you that's concerned that like maybe this team is taking the youth movement maybe a bit too far?
You could say that, but I feel like it really just it depends. Okay, I'll say that it's too early right now to make any judgments about whether these decisions have been good or whether or not they're going too far with this whole youth movement. I know Brian Gutekunst said today, like, they didn't intend to go younger; they're just trying to get fast, But I feel like that's a load of shit. They definitely knew what they were doing. Okay. We're not going to really truly be able to judge whether or not this was a good idea or if they went too far until probably next year, probably even a year after that, because we need to see how they grow together, how they're able to establish chemistry together as a team. No veterans in that. Well, there's veterans, but hardly as much as there used to be. We need to see who's going to step up, who's going to establish themselves in the locker room, who's going to guide this team, how Jordan Love is going to look. We need to see how they respond to adversity on a weekly basis, how they're able to just, like I said, establish chemistry, because everything looks good on paper. They look like they can be a good football team, but there is no way to gauge the ebbs and flows of a season. There is no way to gauge if they just get the shit smacked out of them, they lose 42-10 one week. How are they going to respond to that? How are they going to respond to getting punched in the mouth? How is this team going to come together? Are they going to turn on each other? Are they going to eat each other? What's going to happen? we need to kind of see the results of these transactions, of these decisions, of letting guys like Randall Cobb and Alan Lazard and Mercedes Lewis and Robert Tunyon, of letting them all leave, of trading Aaron Rodgers. Was it a year too early? The Packers not notoriously, but the Packers historically are very good at cutting bait with guys a year, right about when they need to. Yeah, rather than a year too late. Was last year an anomaly for Aaron Rodgers, with the thumb and the young receivers and, the offensive line that took half of the season to come together and, kind of really mesh together was an anomaly. Is he going to go to the Jets and kind of, make the Packers, eat their fucking words? And judging by how fiery he looks in the preseason and a fucking preseason game, I haven't seen that in forever. Judging by that, he's probably going to be motivated to prove the Packers wrong this year. But aside from that, how this team looks, how they come together and conjoin as a collective unit is going to be dependent on Jordan Love.
Yeah.
How he looks. If he's going to be good, I mean, it's easy to fucking smile when things are going good. It's easy to laugh. It's easy to have a good time as a team when things are going good. But what if he's not good? What if he's bad? How are they going to respond to that? Are they going to rally around him? There's so many things that go into it. There's so many things that kind of dictate whether or not it was a good idea. You know what I mean? But if you look at rosters around the league, some guys, some teams, some GMs, they probably wish they could be younger at certain positions. They probably wish they could have kind of kickstarted a youth movement process the way the Packers are right now. They have cornerstones for the foreseeable future and beyond. Rashawn Gary is going to be around for a while. They're going to sign him to an extension. I will bet money on that. Jair Alexander isn't going anywhere. Kenny Clark is still fucking 19 years old.
He just he's Benjamin Button. He gets younger.
He's Benjamin Button. Yeah. He's just going backwards.
Yeah.
They have cornerstones in place on this roster, and some of this young talent that's blossoming, it's going to be special to watch. They're going to be able to grow together. And that's what will determine if this was a good call or not. That's how we're going to kind of look back on Brian Gutekunst's tenure, because this is him moving on from Aaron Rodgers and creating his vision, his roster. I know he's going into his 5th, 6th season as a GM, but he's finally relinquished from the chains of the crackhead. I mean, Aaron Rodgers. So I'm just kidding. But he can finally construct things his way. Matt LaFleur can do things his way. And I'm not saying Aaron Rodgers was holding them back, but
it's just, when it's a whole new, and also it's back to the beginning of Love and basically everything he's been building since that pick.
Yeah. And when a guy's there for 18 fucking years, you're going to kind of be obligated to do things his way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're going to trust his word on it. So he's not there anymore. Now it's their show. So
the boogeyman is gone, the way you just said that. He's like, he's not here to terrorize us anymore. No, I know.
Wait, who said that?
No one said it, but the way you said he's not here anymore.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the ominous black cloud over Lambeau Field is gone.
Yeah.
I don't mean it like that, but
no, I know. But it was just funny the way it came out.
Yeah, it's different. It's a totally new era, and it's exciting. So I think as far as that argument goes, you guys are right and you're wrong. You know what I mean? The fact of the matter is nobody knows.
Yeah. And to some of the things you said, number one, in a large way, and this goes down to every team, it's about your quarterback. If Jordan Love is good, and we're talking about, maybe not Aaron Rodgers, Brett Favre, but if he's a good, high caliber, Pro Bowl caliber kind of quarterback, then this team will be a good team. It just will be. There's other talent. There's around. We've seen it for the last 18 years. If a good quarterback, you're going to be a good team. So it really is so much on Love. Of course, it's not to say it's only him, but it's a lot. But also, I do think when you talk about how they respond to stuff, and it's a team thing, it's more than a one-guy thing. But I do think we've seen from Jordan Love, whether it's the last 3 seasons or just this offseason, whether it's in camp or practice or preseason, short memory. As you always hear, quarterbacks need to have a short memory, and he seems to have that. If he goes out and has a bad start to practice, he doesn't just fold, and the rest of practice is lost, and he's in his head, and he's worried about. He puts it to the side. Okay, next drive, next play, I got this. And I think it was John Kuhn who mentioned it during the last preseason game. every single game, preseason game, Jordan Love, his first drive did not result in a touchdown. And in all of them, he went out the next time and did score a touchdown. It just shows where it's like he's not going to let things get to him and affect him during a game. And that's exciting because that's a big part of being a quarterback in the NFL.
That was something I talked about today. He has this resiliency. You can't teach resiliency. You can't coach resiliency. You can't instill that in a quarterback. That has to be innate. Like that has to be part of your genetic makeup. When he got thrown into that game, short week, made his first start in Arrowhead Stadium, probably the worst fucking place on the planet for a young quarterback to make his first start. He went out there. The Packers lost by a touchdown. He played on par with Patrick Mahomes. He was getting blitzed on 98% of his snaps, 98% of his dropbacks. And he persevered. They almost won that game, but it was a stepping stone. It was something for him to learn from. Didn't rattle him, didn't shake him. Next year, it comes back, thrown into the fire in Philadelphia, in the fourth quarter. 6-9, 113 yards, a touchdown. He did not look rattled. He looked calm. He looked better than he had looked in his 2 years with the team at that point.
Yeah.
In practices and preseason games, whatever it was, he looked better in that moment. And I think that was the moment. That was the Aaron Rodgers in Dallas moment in 2007, November 2007. Almost 15 years to the day.
Crazy.
Jordan Love goes out there, against an NFC East opponent, which is also fucking weird.
In prime time, on the road,
on the road, Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like literally, and obviously we know all the parallels from Rodgers to Favre. So basically, we are living in a loop. It's all a simulation, which I don't mind because our simulation is that we just have great quarterbacks for 15 years at a time.
Yeah,
so
I'm fine with it.
I'll take it.
And then this past preseason, and that's not to mention he's been dealing with all of the drama, surrounding, Aaron Rodgers the last few years, whether he's going to come back and play this and that, blah, blah, blah. He stayed level-headed, stayed focused, did what he had to do. And, this past preseason, like you mentioned, those drives where he comes out, slow start, doesn't look great, kind of shrugs it off, comes back, leads touchdown drives in 3 consecutive games. That's how he exited the game, with a fucking touchdown drive each time.
Yeah.
He is not rattled easily. You need a guy that can be resilient. You need a guy that can bounce back and not, when he gets punched in the mouth, he doesn't fucking roll over. I'm not saying that's what Aaron Rodgers did, because for a large part of his career, he was the last guy you wanted to piss off. He was the last guy that you wanted to aggravate because he's going to make you eat your fucking words. If Jordan Love can be any semblance of that guy, then I don't care how many interceptions he throws. I don't care, how many incompletions he throws, how often he throws that, throws the ball away, how often he skips the ball at a receiver's feet. I don't care. If he's resilient, then, if he could bounce back when things are tough, then that's like 70% of the battle right there.
Yeah, it's a huge part of it for sure. I mean, we see, especially with the way the NFL is now, where so many rookie quarterbacks are immediately thrown in. And if it doesn't start well, it could be like that whole career is just gone. And I mean, I don't want anyone, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, whatever it is. I mean, Lance is different, but it happens all the time. I'm not going to go to examples. We all know the examples of guys that just their first 8 games in the NFL are a total disaster, and then their career backups or not even in the league. So Love being able to sit and having this, but clearly it's only about sitting or learning. Like you said, it's one of those intangibles that GMs and coaches, I'm sure, look for all the time when looking at quarterbacks. Is just the guy that is going to be confident and not get rattled or concerned about one bad throw or one bad play onto the next one. And Love can do that. So that is exciting to know. So exactly like Chris says, just like Kurt Benkert, not the other thing. I'm saying, no, Kurt Benkert's a good guy. That's not what I meant. I meant the other part. But
I'm telling you, fucking said that. Now he's not going to come on the show.
I know.
Happy.
But yeah, so I believe that basically covers all of the news, everything going on. But Zach, it seems like you potentially have some more thoughts.
I was going to add on to your point. Like, Jordan Love has probably the best luxury that any quarterback can have, and something that a lot of guys around the league can't say that they have. And he is playing behind arguably I will fucking say, I said this on Twitter and everyone got pissed off for some reason, but it's true. He's playing behind arguably the best pass protecting offensive line in football. They didn't allow a single hit on Jordan Love all preseason through 3 games. And that's without David Bakhtiari at left tackle. So, that's going to be a huge kind of dictation of his success this season is, that offensive line. If they can protect him, help him stay upright.
Yeah, protecting him and also obviously opening up running holes because for a young quarterback, obviously a running game is big, but I do think within LaFleur's offense, and you want to say, LaFleur getting to run his offense against maybe what the last few years have been, I just think there's no way that we can have another year of every week all we're doing is complaining about the lack of touches for Aaron Jones or the running game in general. Like, if there was ever a time for LaFleur to say, I don't give a shit what happens today, we're running the ball 30 to 40 times no matter what. Like, that's our floor. Like, it has to happen now, and I desperately want to because it's like, let's save Aaron Jones and let's keep giving him 8 freaking carries and 2 receptions. For what? He's 28 years old. What are you waiting for? Like, it is now. You want to get the most out of him, give him the ball, and let him go. It doesn't mean to be irresponsible. It doesn't have 300 touches, but he's the best player on your offense, in my opinion, and I've said that for years. Give him the damn ball. I can't have another year where it's A.J. Dillon gets 12 carries and Aaron Jones gets 9 carries, and it's like, how does that even happen? It's unacceptable, and it can't. So offensive line is going to be key for getting that going.
I agree to you to an extent. I mean, that maintenance and watching his workload is part of the reason why he's going to be pushing 29 and he hasn't really lost a step, just because he doesn't have the mileage, he doesn't have the wear and tear on him as opposed to a guy like Ezekiel Elliott. He's been Leonard Fournette. They've both been run into the fucking ground, and now nobody really wants him. It took Zeke how long to sign with the Patriots? Fournette's still out there as a free agent. And they also ask him to do so many different things. Like, if he's going to carry the ball 10 times a game, whatever, as long as he also has like 7 or 8 touches, 7 to 10 touches to go along with that, because he's also a receiver, he can catch the ball, he can run in space.
Overall, yeah, it's not about the carries. I'm saying overall, Aaron Jones needs to touch the ball 15 times a game. Needs to be in his hands 15 times a game, and if it's not, you failed as a coach, in my opinion.
Matt LaFleur, just like Chris, is a terrorist, so.
Matt LaFleur has been a terrorist for my mental health. I'll tell you that much. Not always, but sometimes he makes me question everything about this world, and it's frustrating. But yeah, I do like the fact that you brought. I was going to mention. I mean, we know that the starting offensive line. I mean, we discussed it last week, so I don't have to get into it. But you still feel confident it's going to be Josh Myers at center, Zach Tom at right tackle, right? So just think about everyone like Packer fans, knowing that you have Yosh Nijman and Rasheed Walker as 2 backup tackles, and we're not even talking about Caleb Jones. Like, I don't think there's any team in the NFL that goes that 4 deep at tackle. That's crazy, and it's great.
They probably have the best tackle depth in the NFL.
Yeah,
they're so deep at tackle, not necessarily at guard, which is why a lot of people were surprised that they hung on to Royce Newman. But the thing is with Royce Newman.
I was hoping we were going to get through without mentioning that guy's name.
No, we got to talk about Royce Newman.
Yeah.
The thing is, he also a terrorist, but get that out of the way. They, as we mentioned earlier, the Packers are a draft and develop organization. They drafted Royce Newman, spent a 4th-round pick on him. They have seen him start at this level. His whole rookie season, he looked serviceable. He looked good. It looked like he could be a long-term starter at guard. I don't know what happened that caused such a steep decline the last couple of years, but they've seen what he can do, and I can't imagine that they are going to part ways with someone that that they've invested in, they've seen perform at this level. So I think the perception of Royce Newman outside is a lot worse than it is inside the building. Yeah. And again, I have lost fucking so much hair watching Royce Newman. I don't like him.
I don't think anyone does.
But they need the depth. That's the bottom line. John Runyon can play guard. Zach Tom can play guard. Elton Jenkins can play guard. They like Sean Ryan, last year's 3rd-round pick, so he could potentially, help them out there. And then there's Royce Newman. That's it. Josh Nyman hasn't played guard. Caleb Jones hasn't played guard. Rasheed Walker is purely a tackle.
Yeah, I mean, you got your starters, but I mean, I guess because you have the positional flexibility from Tom. But yeah, it is pretty weak. And by the way, we mentioned those 4 tackles without saying the fact that Elton Jenkins can play either tackle if needed. So you're really 5 deep. It's astronomical, honestly, what they've done.
He can play fucking guard. He can play tackle. He can play center.
All of it. He can do it all. Elton Jenkins.
He's a sick son of a bitch.
Yeah, like I always say it, but it makes me happier that he's turned into who he is, like that. Because I never really cared. I won't say I would have cared, but like I was never excited about offensive linemen or watching offensive linemen before the NFL draft. And then I watched Elton Jenkins, and he opened my eyes to a new world, and now he's amazing. So that's awesome to see. But yeah, everyone, I do expect it to be Josh Myers and Zach Tom. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully, Myers steps back up, has a good season, because we do not want to worry about center going forward. But yeah, that is covering the practice squad, the roster cut down, Jonathan Taylor, something to keep an eye on. I guess we'll see. But before we head out, as you see at the bottom of the screen, make sure to follow the show on Twitter at @thepack_show. And also, as always, follow us on Twitter. You can find me at Book of Eli _NFL. You can find Jen, who did not join us tonight, but hopefully will soon, at Big Mac _4. Zach, anything you want to plug?
You find me on Twitter. It's Zachary J. I'm still with Packer Report, and I'm also at Heavy.
Packer Report, Heavy, Twitter. You know where to find him. He is Zachariah J. So find people. We appreciate you coming out tonight, everyone who watched. Next week will be our Packers season preview, where we give all of our predictions that always come out completely right in all ways. Don't even try to question our knowledge on the future. It's always right. So we're looking forward to that. And everyone, next time we see you, there will not be a football game yet, but we'll be very close to football. And that is a reason to celebrate. So everyone, we'll see you next week. Go Pack, go.